There are two brands that everyone knows regardless of where they are. Two brands that represent how far the American culture has gone. Coca-Cola and McDonald's. Despite the fact that they are both unhealthy, the world loves them. It's the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue, serving over 69 million customers daily in over 100 countries across almost 38,000 outlets as of 2018. When Russia started its invasion of Ukraine, the news that hit the world was when McDonald's announced that it's leaving Russia in solidarity with Ukraine. It closed down its 850 locations across the country and left 62,000 people jobless. It was an absolute shock since it's one of the biggest private employers in the country. The exact opposite happened a little over 30 years ago when the Soviet Union opened to the world. On the 31st of January 1990, the first ever McDonald's opened its doors in Russia. People stood in lines for hours just to find out how an American burger tastes. A year later, the Soviet Union collapsed and McDonald's expanded to over 850 stores. I'm not trying to make a case that was the reason, but it's an interesting coincidence. When McDonald's opens a store in your country, it's a sign that your country has embraced globalism, and the opposite is true as well. When you look at McDonald's, their business model seems simple. Sell American-style burgers and French fries, and don't forget to place a few ice cream machines that never work. That's how restaurants usually work. However, that is not how McDonald's actually makes money. McDonald's doesn't make money by selling burgers or nuggets because it is not in the business of selling food, but rather it is in the real estate business. What? Wait a second, what McDonald's has to do with real estate? Tech billionaires might dominate the Forbes list with their enormous wealth that derives from their share in companies that they have founded. But the people who actually make money are the ones who own properties and rent them out. The coffee shop on the corner of the street might make a lot of money, but a huge chunk of that cash goes directly to the pockets of the owner of the property. And that's what McDonald's realized early on when starting its business. Selling burgers might be an interesting business, but it's nowhere as profitable as real estate. When Ray Kroc purchased McDonald's, he struggled to grow the business. He knew that the only way to grow this business is through franchising, because there is no way to open dozens of thousands of stores across the globe. The only way to do that is to use the power of small investors who would agree to operate individual McDonald's restaurants with license privilege to the branding. The only question is, if franchising is so efficient, then why other brands aren't as successful as McDonald's? Ray had spent his entire life visiting restaurants across America, selling giant milkshake machines. He used to tell to his customers that people don't want to wait for 20 minutes to get a milkshake, and demonstrated his machine, which made 8 or so milkshakes in one go. He went from one sales call to another, getting rejected. People simply didn't see the need to buy such a machine. They never thought the food was a time game. People definitely wouldn't mind waiting half an hour for a well-cooked food in a nice restaurant, but when you're in a hurry, all you want to do is grab your meal in a few minutes and get back to work. But the only way to make that work is by franchising. The problem with franchises is that they're unpredictable since the revenue depends highly on where it's located and who is running the franchise. So it came up with a more stable franchising model. It purchases the land on top of which McDonald's is built on and leases the land to the franchisee. By leveraging its products, fast food to franchisees who have to lease properties, often at a large markups, that are owned by McDonald's. The McD brand will attract large crowds to the store, and in return, the company will receive a stable stream of income from rent. That's how McDonald's ended up owning thousands of iconic pieces of real estate across the globe, from New York City Times Square to Moscow's Red Square. McDonald's has ventured around the world, buying up prime real estate. Franchisees pay McDonald's a cut of their food sales, but a much larger portion of McDonald's revenue comes from the rent that it leases. After all, rent in Times Square isn't cheap, but the Big Mac is. On top of the royalty that McDonald's makes on its franchisees sell, it has a stable income from leases that it collects from dozens of thousands of locations across the world. As a wise man once said,
"You don't build an empire off a 1.4% cut of a 15-cent hamburger. You build it by owning the land upon which that burger is cooked. What you ought to be doing is buying up plots of land, then turning around and leasing said plots to franchisees who, as a condition of their deal, should be permitted to lease from you and you alone."
And that's what separates McDonald's from the rest of the restaurant chains. Its business model is closer to Netflix than a restaurant, since it's a more of a subscription business. Its revenue is far more stable and, most importantly, predictable, while the operating costs are measurably lower, allowing for an easier path to profitability. The only question is, why would anyone become a McDonald's franchisee? Why start a McDonald's franchise when McDonald's is actually making most of the money? The answer is simple and straightforward. The restaurant industry is extremely competitive, and most restaurants are barely surviving since margins are really low. The restaurant business seems pretty simple since you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but often margins are so low that only 20% of restaurants actually end up making money. About 60% of restaurants fail in their first year of operation, and 80% fail within 5 years of opening. So if you can survive in the restaurant business, you can make it in any other industry. And that's what makes McDonald's such a lucrative business. Margins are so high and the brand is so popular that there is no way you wouldn't end up making money, since McDonald's often has notoriously strict criteria for its franchisees to make sure that it works out. Have you ever seen a McD that doesn't attract large crowds? That's how McDonald's rose to become the most valuable fast food brand in the world, with an estimated value of about $184 billion. Even if you take KFC, Subway, Burger King, Domino's Pizza, Pizza Hut all together, they wouldn't be as valuable as McDonald's. The second largest chain is Starbucks, which comes at half of McD's valuation. McDonald's holds almost $60 billion worth of real estate worldwide, which makes it one of the largest real estate holders in the world. That's why its $184 billion valuation isn't just based on investors' expectations, but rather it is backed by real hard assets. In 2014, the company made $27.4 billion in revenue, with $9.2 billion coming from franchised locations and $18.2 billion from company-owned locations. It is clear where most of the company's profits are coming from. As real estate prices kept rising in the last years, so did the company's stock. It is of course a slow business model that doesn't promise any astronomical returns. Since McDonald's owns the locations, it is extremely careful in choosing the locations. But once it chooses a location, the rest is simple and straightforward. In other words, instead of aiming at profit margins, the company is focused on creating passive income sources. Each new location is one way or another a passive income source. Its valuation might not shoot to the moon like some tech stocks. Yes, I'm talking about Tesla. But its steady, gradual approach makes it crisis-proof. If you want to learn how to analyze stocks, you can check out my investing course on Skillshare. It's easy, simple, and fully animated. And the best part of it is that if you use the link in the description, you can get 2 weeks of Skillshare Premium for free. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.